Feels like we've seen this one before, huh? Over the last few decades, The Simpsons have appeared to dominate the TV world, winning numerous accolades, breaking records, and even getting Homer's famous "dough" catchphrase in the dictionary. It's safe to say there will never be a show like this one again. Sure, there are similar animated comedy-based shows that are centered around a family, but there's only one Simpsons family, only one Springfield, and only one writer's room, which appears to somehow foreshadow what's going to happen in the real world by writing scenarios into episodes of the show. Now, the show's writers have denied they're fortune tellers or time travelers from the past, but I'm finding it incredibly hard to believe, and after this video, I'm sure you will too. Today on Life's Biggest Questions, we're trying to figure out what's going on as we count down the top 10 Simpsons predictions that came true. Smash that like button, let's get right into this one. Starting us off at number 10, Autocorrect. Way back in 1994, which was actually the year I was born, believe it or not, the iPhone wasn't even a thought. Or maybe it was, but I doubt anyone aside from Steve Jobs, maybe Steve Wozniak and a few others knew about it. There was the Apple Newton, which was a short-lived digital assistant from the 90s. A failed iPhone, if you will. Regardless, in 94, The Simpsons aired an episode called Lisa on Ice. It's from season 6, episode 8, and included a little jab at Apple's failed experiment. However, it also seems to have predicted the future. During a segment in the episode, two of Springfield's bullies are sitting in an assembly when one reminds the other to use his Newton to set a reminder to beat up Martin. As Doph writes a note to beat up Martin on his Newton phone, or assistant, it auto-corrected and reads out, "Eat up Martin." Aside from making fun of one of the very reasons the invention was a failure, it just didn't work properly, somehow the show's creators were able to predict Apple products would always get the autocorrect wrong. Apparently, I ducking love things a lot. Number 9, Three-eyed fish. This is the one that will always stand out the most to me simply because it's just too accurate. Now, one could argue that to make the assumption something like this would eventually happen wouldn't be so crazy. At the same time, no other show or movie really joked about it before The Simpsons, so what does that tell you? Season 2, episode 4, which aired back in 1990, Bart ends up fishing near the Springfield power plant, where he discovers Blinky, the Simpsons' beloved three-eyed fish. Now, as previously mentioned, the idea of radioactive materials being dumped into large bodies of water always concerned us, as we knew there were definitely some sort of possibilities of mutations or genetic repercussions, if you will. And it turns out that was confirmed in 2011 when an Argentinian man started to make headlines after he caught a three-eyed fish while out fishing with some friends. It turns out the fish was caught in a reservoir where a power plant pumps hot water from their facility, and clearly the water just gets polluted. Fisherman Julian Zmutt said, I quote, "We were fishing and we got the surprise of getting this rare specimen. As it was dark at the time, we did not notice, but then you looked at him with a flashlight and saw that he had a third eye." At number 8, Ebola breakout. Now, I will admit, guys, this one is a bit of a stretch, but some people are arguing that The Simpsons did predict it. Ultimately, I'm more so here to kind of just present the facts and let you guys decide or argue in the comments down below. I'm just a creator of chaos. It was the year of 1997, and The Simpsons had aired an episode titled Lisa's Sacks, Season 9, Episode 3. A clip from the episode shows Marge holding a Curious George book, which shows the adventurous monkey laying in bed sick. The book's cover reads Curious George and the Ebola virus. Now, as you may or may not remember, back in 2014, there was an Ebola epidemic. The majority of cases broke out in countries such as Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, but there were also a few cases in the US, Italy, and the UK. However, nothing like what we're seeing now. Still, the amount of lives lost in West Africa, specifically the countries affected most by the epidemic, were in the thousands. It lasted for about 3 years, starting at the end of 2013 and lasting all the way until 2016. Again, the episode of The Simpsons referencing the virus was from 1997, and some people made the argument that they predicted Ebola would have an outbreak and turn into a country or worldwide issue. Now, if it wasn't a known virus before the episode, I'd say that's pretty crazy. However, there were 2 Ebola outbreaks, small in comparison to the 2014 one, but still outbreaks nonetheless, that both occurred in 1996. The first is in Sudan, which is when the virus is believed to have first been identified. Of course, they didn't realize what it was until after the fact. The second outbreak occurred in the Congo Republic, when it was known as Zaire. Both occurrences led to a total of about 430 deaths and about 600 total infections. So did The Simpsons predict an outbreak? I mean, I guess it depends who you ask. On to number 7, we got censoring Michelangelo's sculpture, David. Say that fast 3 times. From season 2, episode 9, titled Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, the mother of the household decides she no longer wants Bart and Lisa to watch Itchy and Scratchy because it's too violent. Taking things a step further, Marge then also decides she's going to create the Springfieldians for Nonviolence, Understanding, and Helping. It was a group of Karens before Karens even existed. You can add that to their list of things they predicted, I guess. Jeez. Back to Marge's group here. When a traveling exhibition showing off the classic piece of David came to Springfield, members of the group were pushing to protest its appearance due to, well, you know, the full frontal. David showing it all, baby. Marge disagrees, saying that it's just art, which then leads to Marge realizing the hypocrisy in the situation. not the point here. Point is, The Simpsons predicted this idea that someone would want Michelangelo's masterpiece, David, to be covered up. And in July 2016, a woman in St. Petersburg, Russia, complained that a plastic replica of the statue was inappropriate for children as it was placed near a school and a church. This led to a vote among locals to decide whether or not they should cover his pecker. Like, this is where we're going now, guys. Number 6, the horse meat scandal. Man, I was so set up to make a great segue from that Michelangelo David situation to the horse meat scandal, but I didn't. And here we are. Now, if you paid attention to the news or lived in Europe in 2013, specifically the UK, then you almost definitely know about the horse meat scandal. Season 5, episode 19, titled Sweet Seymour Skinner's Badass Song, shows a segment of lunch lady Doris dipping her hands into a massive drum labeled assorted horse parts, now with more testicles. Fantastic. Obviously playing on the idea that Springfield Elementary is heavily underfunded, this episode aired way back in 1994, and it was meant as a joke. But in 2013, a horse meat scandal across Europe, which is referred to as the biggest food fraud of the 21st century, affected numerous countries. France, Russia, Iceland, and England to name a few, all who were delivered mislabeled products. Items which read 100% beef included other types of meat from horses, pigs, and God knows what else. Probably one of the most accurate predictions out there, considering how they use that meat for school lunches. At number 5, FIFA corruption. Again, the idea of corruption among the FIFA community isn't so far-fetched. It's the biggest sport in the world, very profitable, and, well, it's a sport, which, as we've seen in the past, can sometimes lead to big money, especially if you know you're going to win, all the time. We've heard of dives in boxing, people being paid off to lose, and in 2015, a huge FIFA scandal broke, which resulted in numerous arrests after allegations of corruption. In a 2014 Simpsons episode titled You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee, episode 16, season 25, a very quick cut shows the front page of a French newspaper. The headline in French reads, Scandale de football, and shows an executioner at a guillotine about to execute a soccer referee. Now, obviously, the 2015 scandal didn't lead to any executions, but as previously mentioned, there was a massive FIFA scandal that happened a year after The Simpsons joked about one happening. I mean, if that isn't a coincidence, then they predicted the future. Like, bottom line, no questions asked. It's just, that's what happened. On to number 4, legalization of cannabis in Canada. We're going way back to 2005, when The Simpsons showed a Canadian version of Ned Flanders, offering the Springfield version what he referred to as a reeferino. Episode 6, season 16, titled Midnight RX, has Homer, Apu, Flanders, and Homer's dad, Grandpa, head across the border to Manitoba to purchase cheaper meds for the people of Springfield. This is after Mr. Burns tells the employees of the power plant he's cutting their prescription drug plans. While in Canada, Ned runs into his Canadian self, an almost identical version of Ned, but with a slight Canadian accent and different appearance. After going back and forth with their how-diddly-hoes, Canadian Ned pulls out a joint and asks original Ned if he wants to puff on a reeferino, following up with, "It's legal here." Ned, angry, replies, "They warned me Satan would be attractive, let's go." In 2018, Canada would legalize recreational cannabis countrywide. Simpsons predicted it, and let me tell you guys, it's fun. At number 3, rigged voting machines. It's fair to argue technology does screw up, but this was a very accurate screw up if you ask me. Episode 4, season 20, which was actually a Treehouse of Horror episode, aired on November 2nd, 2008. The opening scene showed Homer trying to vote for presidential nominee at the time, Barack Obama. However, every time he pressed to vote for Obama, the machine, obviously rigged, tallied a vote for his opponent, John McCain. During the 2012 election, when President Obama was eyeing a re-election over Mitt Romney, there was a voting machine which literally tallied votes for Obama against him. There was even video footage of it happening, and to no surprise, people blame The Simpsons for this one, which again, like, how do they, like, they could say any technology could screw up, how do they know a voting machine? Come on. At number 2, Nobel Prize winner. In season 22, episode 1, titled Elementary School Musical from 2010, a very quick cut shows a betting pool that Martin, Lisa, Database, and Milhouse filled out. The pool was for who would win which Nobel Prize, with the categories including physics, chemistry, economics, and literature. Of the names on the list, Milhouse placed a bet that MIT professor Bengt Holmstrom would win the Nobel Prize for economics. And guess what happened in 2016, folks? Now, maybe it's just one of those things that was bound to happen eventually just because of, how smart this guy is, but still, very impressive, even if it is 6 years later. Number 1, Ted Cruz's Cancun trip. Given how recently the events took place, this is freakishly accurate. You guys may or may not know, but during the Texas deep freeze, Texas Senator Ted Cruz was caught trying to flee to Cancun. He claimed to have just been chaperoning his family and had every intention of returning back immediately, but it seems that was just a cover-up because he got caught. I mean, why do you need to chaperone your family on a flight? Especially while your people, Texans, are literally freezing to death. Cruz would later admit to his mistake, as he called it, but it seems back in 1993, season 4, episode 21, titled Marge in Chains, Springfield's mayor did something very similar. Now, this episode is actually the one that predicted the pandemic and murder hornets, if you guys remember. So in the episode, a pandemic takes over Springfield, and Mayor Quimby is seen addressing the people from his office, or so we think. After a man cuts in front of him with drums during the live broadcast, we see that the mayor fled his town to a beach, which is where he's been reporting from. Wearing a suit and a tied top with flip-flops and a bathing suit, as well as the backdrop of his office, Quimby tried to fool his own people and got caught. Seems like they know something that we don't. Kicking our list off at number 10, we got the three-eyed fish. Known as Blinky in The Simpsons, the mutated fish gets discovered after Bart fishes it up near the Springfield power plant. This happens in season 2, episode 4, which aired back in 1990. Although we knew radioactive materials could cause some sort of mutations, we never really knew what it was capable of, aside from potentially turning a scientist into an angry green man. Fast forward to 2011 and there are headlines about an Argentinian man who caught a three-eyed fish while out on a fishing trip with some friends. It turns out the fish was caught in a reservoir where a power plant pumps hot water from their facility, and clearly the water gets polluted. Fisherman Julian Zumot said, I quote, "We were fishing and we got the surprise of getting this rare specimen. As it was dark at that time, we did not notice, but then you looked at him with a flashlight and saw that he had a third eye."
Coming in at number 9, we have President Donald Trump. Back in 2000, Simpson aired an episode titled Bart to the Future. Basically, in this episode, Bart gets a glimpse into what his future is going to be like. And in the episode, we see Donald Trump trying to run for president. Kind of. Then, what do you know? A couple of years later, he is the president. So a lot of fans are convinced that this episode predicted Trump's presidency. In the episode during a cabinet meeting, Lisa says, and I quote, "We inherited quite the budget crunch from President Trump." I repeat, she said, President Trump. Now, when asked about this, the writer Al Jean said that they were just looking for a celebrity that would be funny as the president.
Another writer said it was a reference to Trump attempting to run as a Reform Party candidate. Either way, this prediction is pretty creepy.
Pretty creepy.
Moving on to number 8, the horse meat scandal. If you lived in the UK around 2013 or really just turned on the news, you likely heard about what was referred to as the biggest food fraud of the 21st century. Companies across numerous European countries were caught not only reselling moldy products, but a large majority of them were mislabeling their meats, with a lot of them including horse meat among other animals. Countries such as France, Iceland, England, Russia, Ireland, Sweden, and others were affected by this scandal, with supermarkets selling 100% beef products that included horse, pig, and as gross as it is, it's even crazier that The Simpsons somehow predicted this, as they aired an episode back in 1994 in which lunch lady Doris is feeding the kids mystery meat. More specifically, in season 5, episode 19, Doris serves the kid from a large container, reading assorted horse meat, which, I mean, considering how those lunch to-go packs specifically made for kids were one of the many affected products, it's kind of like they predicted this one, that kids are going to be eating horse meat.
Making our way down the list, number 7, we got The Victory. Back in 2008, Simpsons released an episode titled Boy Meets Curl. It was the 12th episode in season 21. Now, in this episode, Marge and Homer both fall in love with curling. It results in them qualifying to compete in mixed doubles curling at the 2010 Winter Olympics. At the end of the episode, Marge leads their team to victory, beating Sweden. Well, in 2018, the US men's curling team beat Sweden and won the gold at the Olympics. So they predicted that not only would America win its first gold medal in curling, but that they would beat Sweden. Coincidence? I think not.
Bringing us to number 6, Siegfried and Roy Tiger Attack. For obvious reasons, the Simpsons version of Siegfried and Roy were called Gunter and Ernst. However, they two worked in a casino and had a magic show where they displayed white tigers. More specifically, the two worked with a tiger named Anastasia, and in the episode, the cat has a dream or a flashback about how she was captured by Gunter and Ernst with the use of a tranquilizer gun. While performing a show with the two handlers, she lashes out and attacks them both in front of a crowded audience. The episode aired back in 1993, and 10 years later, in 2003, a very similar sequence of events would play out. I can't say what caused the attack, as it's been disputed over the years. However, while performing one of their many shows, the late Roy Horn was attacked by a tiger on stage. All in all, he would survive the attack, but the show would officially come to an end, with that performance being their final performance, and Horn would be partially paralyzed until his passing in 2020.
We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the NSA spying scandal. In 2013, former contractor for the CIA, Edward Snowden, revealed that the US National Security Agency, NSA, was collecting phone records of millions of Americans. Dun dun dun! So they were spying on us, well not us, I'm Canadian. So they were spying on them through their phone calls, and still are. But anyways, in the 2007 Simpsons movie, they literally predicted that this would happen. So in the movie, the Simpsons family flees Springfield and are hiding from the EPA. Well, in one scene, Marge warns her family to be careful because people could be listening in on their conversations. Then it cuts to a room filled with NSA agents listening in on a bunch of people's calls. It's like they knew from the beginning that we were being spied on by the government.
On to number 4, we got rigged voting machines. Now it is safe to say, as much as a prediction this one was, it's also technology that we're dealing with, so the fact that they predicted it would malfunction isn't the craziest thought in the world. Still, the fact that the show seemingly predicted which part of the voting machine would be in favor for, or against, was certainly impressive. In a 2008 episode, Homer could be seen going to a voting booth and trying to vote for Democratic nominee Barack Obama over Republican John McCain. As he clicks Obama's name, the machine can be seen tallying a vote for McCain instead. During the 2012 election, in which Barack Obama would beat out Mitt Romney, there was a voting machine which saw people voting for Obama have their votes count toward Romney. There is even video footage of it happening, and to no surprise, people blame The Simpsons for this one too.
In our third spot, we have the murder hornets. Remember a couple of months ago when we got the whole murder hornet scare? Like, they literally came out of nowhere, but then they were like less of an issue than we all thought it would be. Well, it's thought that The Simpsons predicted this. But what's freakier is how The Simpsons predicted that we would be invaded by murder hornets at the same time as a virus outbreak. So in the 1993 episode titled Marge in Chains, the town gets sick from the flu sent from Japan. In the same episode, the people of Springfield are rioting when they knock over a truck which breaks open a crate labeled Danger, Killer Bees. They literally got 2 predictions right in this one episode. I don't know how they do it, but they do.
Now at number 2, we got smartwatches. Sure, it's somewhat of a stretch, as much like the rigged voting machines, The Simpsons likely just decided to go in the direction of a trend. Given that we were advancing technology at such a quick rate, the idea of having a phone-like watch probably wasn't the most outlandish idea at the time. In fact, numerous films and TV shows such as James Bond and Inspector Gadget incorporated a watch that had capabilities beyond telling time. Whether it was a walkie-talkie, a weapon of sorts, or God knows what else, the idea of a gadget-like watch has been around for decades prior to the 1995 Simpsons episode. That being said, in the episode, a man named Hugh can be seen talking to the watch, in which it literally turns into a phone. Although we currently don't have such technology, the year of the smartwatch, which is 2014, introduced the Apple Watch, which was pretty much sold as an extension of your iPhone. It could pick up messages, give you app updates, and of course, make and receive calls. Seems like a good old prediction if you ask me, and that's a scary one at that.
And in our number 1 spot, we have the Higgs boson particle. In season 10, episode 2 of The Simpsons, Homer becomes inspired by the work of Thomas Edison. As a result, he tries to become an inventor. In one scene, we see Homer scribbling on a chalkboard. At the bottom, it reveals a math equation, which wasn't thought to be anything big. Until more than a decade later, when scientists discovered the Higgs boson particle, otherwise known as the God particle. That's when they realized that this particle was a lot similar to Homer's work on the chalkboard. How on earth did they do it? The writers must be super smart, or they have psychic powers. What do you guys think? Are the Simpsons writers psychic? Do they have access to insider information? Are they from the future?
Yes.
Let us know in the comments below.
Yes,
Which one? Oh, all of it?
Just yes. To no surprise, there are now claims across the internet The Simpsons have once again made an incredible prediction. Well, the event in which they apparently predicted isn't so incredible, more so the fact that they predicted an event in the first place. On January 6th, hundreds, possibly even thousands of Donald Trump supporters collectively gathered together to protest the election results. The protest ended up making its way to the government's Capitol building, where officials were certifying the Electoral College votes, thus officially naming Joe Biden the next president of the United States of America. As we know, they didn't get to follow through as planned, after numerous unruly supporters stormed the building, literally taking over. Outnumbering police and security forces, these extremist supporters, some armed, made their way into the Capitol building, and after hours of being in control, were finally apprehended. Oddly enough, there's a Simpsons episode where something similar happens. Today on Life's Biggest Questions, we're asking, did the Simpsons predict the storming of the Capitol? Smash that like button and let's get into it. So which episode are people talking about, and is it actually similar at all to what has happened? I'll cover all of that, but first things first, it's from Treehouse of Horror series episode 31, which is really season 2 episode 4, and aired November 1st, 2020. Obviously, given that the episode is going to be airing 2 days prior to the election, that was the main focus of the show's famous opening scenes. You know, the ones that they show before every episode starts and right before the writer's credits, like after the opening when they open the garage. But this time it was different. It was a Treehouse of Horror, so instead, it showed Homer sleeping in a hammock on November 3rd with no intention to vote, until Marge calls him to persuade or yell at him. At this point, he's in the voting booth. The show jokingly establishes that Trump's running mate is Putin, and while debating who to vote for, Lisa jumps in. She questions how Homer could even think about voting for Trump, given what he's done over the years, prompting Homer to ask his daughter to remind him. The show then proceeds to list off numerous instances and times Trump has done wrong, almost in a rolling credits type sequence. As Homer is about to vote, it cuts back to him on the hammock sleeping, and it turns out he didn't vote. When Marge yells at him, he asks, "How bad could it be?" To which the show cuts to January 20th, 2021, Inauguration Day, and it's the apocalypse. Homer is on his roof wearing pots and pans as armor, holding a shotgun and drinking a beer while there's broken buildings and burning landscape all around him. However, there is also a large metal government robot looking machine that attacks Hans Moleman, the old Simpsons character known for not having the best luck. Obviously, the show's writers were not only trying to highlight the importance of voting to the viewers in general, but made their stance on current President Donald Trump very clear. In case you couldn't tell, they're not fans. As Homer sits on top of his roof, he looks up to see the four headless horsemen with flags right behind them. The flags read pestilence, famine, war, and Treehouse of Horror 31. Great opening, wish we could show you guys, but you know, copyright and stuff. Look it up though, it's on YouTube. So what does that have to do with storming the Capitol? Well, people on Twitter were quick to make the comparison that the United States was heading toward a war of some kind, or an apocalyptic state. Now that seems a little extreme, but I mean, it's the internet, right? It's the wild, wild west. Out here, anyone can do or say whatever they want. Turns out numerous people have been making the comparison. Some tweets claim that The Simpsons predict on the 21st an all-out war will break out, while others were saying the image of Homer on his roof and the fire is where things are headed, given the recent events that have occurred at the Capitol building. Now, the reality here is that The Simpsons were simply just trying to have some fun, make some jokes, claiming if Trump were to win the election once again due to people not voting, well, the country would become a literal war zone. As I said before, the writers of the show, clearly not fans. However, to say that they predicted anything is a bit of a stretch, don't you say? But to no surprise, that's not where things end here. It seems people are almost eager to find ways that The Simpsons predicted the future, and will try to connect current events to past episodes, one way or another. For example, someone else jokingly tweeted out that The Simpsons predicted the Capitol storming, sharing a clip from the episode titled The Day Violence Died. Episode 18, Season 7 aired back on March 17th, 1996, and a segment in the episode was a parody of the 1976 Schoolhouse Rock segment, I'm Just a Bill. The Simpsons version was I'm an amendment to be, and when the amendment is ratified, he then says, "Doors open, boys," to which a ton of other amendment or bill looking characters start storming up the steps of the Capitol building, holding all types of munitions, from shotguns to explosives, and who knows what else. Some have been making the comparison that this is what the actual scene at the Capitol building looked like on January 6th when Trump supporters took over. The YouTube video of the clip has tons of recent comments saying The Simpsons predicted the future once again, or time-stamping the specific part in the scene and putting a date of January 6th, 2021, alluding to that actually being our current reality. And yet, there is another photo that has been going viral, leading many to believe The Simpsons somehow predicted the future. I'm telling you guys, it's gotten to the point where people are now trying to find similarities between the show and reality, and depending how much we give into it or not is what really determines how much they've predicted. Which leads to my next point, the viral video here. You've likely seen a photo of the pro-Trump rioter wearing a fur hat with horns sticking out, similar to what was worn during older wars. This man's name is Jake Angeli, and let's just say he's known for having some very extreme views. We're talking like the real very extreme kind, openly aligning himself with organizations that are, you know, not seen to be the best. You know, the ones that spread wild rumors and then do incredibly extreme things, such as storm the Capitol building after buying into said online rumors. Either way, Jake also has quite distinctive tattoos, so when a photo of everyone's favorite custodian, groundskeeper Willie from The Simpsons, started going viral, showing Willie wearing the exact same thing Jake was, with the exact same tattoos, well, people were freaked out. Now, when you see the photo of the two side by side, I mean, it's damn freaky. They're pretty much identical, and if you weren't a fan of The Simpsons, or just didn't do your own research, then yeah, this is very weird. It's not a similarity we're talking about here, it's the exact same thing. Almost as if it's too good to be true, and that's because it is. It's unclear where the first side-by-side photo started to circulate, but I found tons of tweets including the images, as well as comments from Twitter users mentioning how photoshopped or fake the image is. And of course, after it's been proven to be fake, everyone is quick to point the finger and say, look at this guy who believed it. But prior to us getting to the bottom of this one, a lot of people were quick to point out how The Simpsons, yet again, predict the future. To no surprise, this led to the side-by-side images to go viral fairly quickly, and gain a lot of traction. Maybe some people want to believe the Simpsons really are privy to information we're not, and over the years, they'll slowly tell us what the future has in store. I would not put my money on it though. Instead, maybe start watching another show by Simpsons creator Matt Groening, such as Futurama. That may be a better indication of what's to come. Getting back to the photo, Snopes, a fact-checking website, broke down a detailed explanation of why the side-by-side comparison was fake, showing the original source of Willie. Firstly, the image of Willie wearing the furry and horned hat with the face paint American flag in hand, an identical tattoo similar to that of Angeli, well, it's not even real. To no surprise, everything was photoshopped onto groundskeeper Willie to help further push this ideology that the Simpsons can see into the future. The original image of Willie does show him shirtless and screaming, but he's not wearing anything over his red hair, he's got no tattoos covering his muscular body, and his fist is raised in the air, but there's no flag. The image in which he's seen posing in front of the Capitol building also appears to be completely manufactured. After getting a larger view of the image as a whole, it shows the Simpsons, as well as Willie, appearing to be almost cut and pasted in front of a Springfield version of the Capitol building. Again, when seeing a cropped version of the image side by side next to Jake and Jelly, at first it certainly is a little believable. But when you see the entire image, you can tell this was clearly the work of someone who was trying to play a trick on the internet, and it looks like they succeeded. Now, if I said that is all there is to this one, I'd be lying, because let's be real guys, as I said before, people are looking for ways the Simpsons predicted the future. I guess our future. Which is why there is yet another internet theory, if you call it that, circulating the web that although it didn't gain nearly as much attention as the fake photo of Willie, in my opinion, this one is actually much more accurate when compared to real life events. In season 11, episode 1 titled Beyond Blunderdome, which aired on September 26, 1999, Homer befriends movie star Mel Gibson after attending one of his film's screenings. All in all, everyone writes positive reviews about the film except for Homer, which leads to Mel seeing Homer as the only person in the world who will be honest with him. The two then rewrite the movie, a remake of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and includes a sequence where Gibson's character enters Congress with a gun and kills every member of Congress as well as the president. Now again, I don't think Mel Gibson was among the protesters or rioters, although I wouldn't be all that surprised given his past history. All joking aside guys, it seems moving forward we're going to be dealing with a lot of people trying to prove one way or another that the Simpsons did indeed warn us about events in the past pertaining to our future. Although they've said themselves time and time again, they just write what they know, aka history, and history repeats itself, people will only hear what they want to hear sometimes.
Coming in at number 10, we've got the glass dome. There are a whole bunch of different reasons that we could all find ourselves living beneath the protective cover of an enormous transparent fishbowl. In the feature-length Simpsons movie, we learned of a pig-based environmental disaster that prompted the head of the EPA to close off everything. Sure, it could have been anything, seeing as the solution was randomly chosen, but that's what they landed on. I can't imagine that the real-world decision-making process is much more refined, to be honest. Now, we haven't heard any whispers of glass doming any major cities yet, but don't write it off. There are 1,000,001 reasons that the powers that be could decide it's time to use the new dome-making technology to quarantine a city. If anything, preventing the spread of COVID could be used as the reason to totally shut off a place from the rest of the world. If a variant manages to be quicker and stronger than the other virus versions, and folks decide they don't want to comply with a stay-at-home order, the glass globe could be called in. We could also see an environmental issue potentially prove too dangerous to ignore, just like in Springfield in the movie. Or maybe a zombie outbreak will begin, and the good folks on the outside will decide that they're okay with the losses inside the dome. Anything to prevent a worldwide zombie apocalypse, right? It seems a little crazy, sure, but the moment you declare that no glass dome will ever be dropped upon your head is the moment that it actually happens. Don't tempt fate. Coming in at number 9, we've got the Four Horsemen. Well, 3 in a wild card. Last November, the Simpsons aired their latest in a long line of Treehouse of Horror episodes. The classic Halloween tradition tends to lampoon some kind of popular horror IP while also poking fun at recent events. This time, they predicted the end of the world along with some bits concerning voting, both with similar results, of course. But the end of the world is preceded by the classic symbol of the end times, Four Horsemen, except this time there's a new guy riding along. We see war, we see pestilence, we see famine, all flying tattered banners above skeletal riders, and we also see Treehouse of Horror 31. Well, so far we've seen one of those, right? Although the current American administration seems intent on stirring the pot by calling out foreign leaders and ordering drone strikes, so war could still be on the table. Pestilence is actually here too, with COVID still impacting people's lives throughout North America and beyond. And famine is generally an issue, even though food scarcity has been supposedly solved. Anyone else see those dumpsters full of edible food get guarded by armed police? I don't know, folks, it's looking like all these horsemen might have come through after all, and if they didn't, they might be here soon. Coming at number 8, President Harris. A few eagle-eyed viewers noticed a few similarities between the outfits of Vice President Kamala Harris and Lisa Simpson. In an episode that aired back in 2000, the show looks forward to a prospective future. Lisa ends up being President of the United States and is seen in the Oval Office going over the country's finances. Funnily enough, she even mentions that they inherited quite the budget crunch from President Trump. She's wearing a purple suit and a pair of pearl earrings with a necklace too. Flash forward 21 years and we see Kamala Harris wearing an almost identical outfit on Inauguration Day. She might not be president, but she's close. And the fact that both purple-wearing politicians came into power immediately after Trump left office makes one think there could be something to this. Could Kamala end up in charge? The Simpsons seem to say yes. Coming in at number 7, Mars colonization. The space travel pipe dream. We've been imagining what this might be like for so long that if it actually happens, we might not actually know what to do. The Simpsons took a swing at life beyond our current limits in an episode where Lisa decides she's gonna head to Mars with the help of Exploration Incorporated. Marge and the rest of the family decide to tag along, with the initial touchdown on the Red Planet estimated to be somewhere in 2026. However, they don't make it in time, and when they do eventually arrive, Lisa announces that she might be thinking about Venus now. There are a few folks who seem to be planning on bringing us to Mars in the near future, maybe not in 2021, but who knows. SpaceX has all sorts of Mars missions in mind, with cargo flights potentially lifting off next year. But will we have humans on the surface of Mars in 2021? Not likely. Coming in at number 6, we've got an environmental meltdown. We talked about the glass dome a little earlier, but that was a reaction to another prediction the Simpsons might have made. In that very same movie, Homer gets a pet pig and stores all of the pig's droppings in a massive silo. Instead of disposing of them responsibly, the donut-mucking family man decides to pump the sewage into a nearby lake, causing a catastrophic environmental disaster. This is what eventually inspires the government to drop a dome on the town. Most folks take a look at Homer Simpson and think that he's an exaggerated caricature, but the thing is, there are people who are actually that irresponsible in the real world. So I don't think it's an extreme long shot for us to predict a massive meltdown from a similarly bad decision. You know, maybe it'll be a ship of hazardous material that accidentally unloads into a body of water. We've already seen the Suez Canal plugged up by a container-laden ship. I'm sure that'll have some long-standing economic effects as well as some environmental ones. Coming in at number 5, Ivanka for Prez. Here's a quick and potentially likely one. We see a button on Homer that says Ivanka 2028. Donald Trump promised a return to the political arena when he gets his chance, but it also seems that his family is tossing their hats into the ring. Maybe not for president, but definitely for right-wing influencer. Don Jr. and Eric seem to be doing their best to remain relevant in the right-wing online community, and folks have touted Ivanka as a sensible pick for politics for a while. We won't be able to see if this one is true for a little while, but keep an eye out for political opportunism over the next little while. Coming in at number 4, musical brainwashing. To be fair, this one could already be happening, and we wouldn't know until like 20 years from now. There's an episode where Bart and pals end up as members of a successful boy band, which turns out to be a part of a major Navy psyop. Their big hit? A song called Drop Da Bomb. Subtle. But with the military bankrolling Marvel flicks and major corporations acting like human beings on social media to convince people that they're relatable, would it really be all that surprising if a bunch of big hits these days were sending subliminal messages meant to control behavior? Coming in at number 3, Hollow Mail. We're close to this one, and to be honest, I can't see something like this taking off now that we've got video-enabled smartphones. But having the ability to send holographic messages via the mail like a goofy little Star Wars facsimile would be pretty fun, but it probably wouldn't be too cheap. And I doubt someone looking for a band for a show would bother to use one of these and contact the musicians like what happened to The Simpsons. Coming in at number 2, hover cars. Speaking of technology pipe dreams, we've been waiting for hover cars for ages. Remember when shows and movies depicting 2021 would have just about guaranteed that we'd have flying vehicles and self-lacing shoes by now? One of those things is probably easier and safer to implement than the other, but still. A 2005 episode of The Simpsons showed Homer and Lisa riding around in an admittedly shaky prototype, but achieve liftoff and stay in the air long enough to get them to their destination. Cars have improved considerably over the years, but we're still nowhere near consumer-grade hover cars. Who knows though? And finally at number 1, sponsored schooling. And not sponsored by an education board or anything like that, I'm talking about products taking over the education of our young minds. In a gag that might seem a little too real today, we see an aging Troy McClure lecturing an overstuffed classroom via telecommunication. Math is sponsored by Pepsi, and he wants to know how refreshed everyone is instead of an integer answer, and even gives partial credit for an answer in the form of the brand name. we're close, we're getting there. Soon, the Amazon Lifetime Fulfillment course presented by Zoom and Microsoft will be projected into homes across the world. With education budgets getting slashed left and right, it wouldn't be surprising if schools as we know it shifted entirely digital. And once we're there, it's super easy for brands to slip in. Good luck, kids.